We all know that champions are designed to be tanky classes that take hits for allies. But what if we could build a champion that not only does that, but is also a threat on the battlefield, giving enemies even more of a reason to attack them instead of allies, especially in combination with the Battle Harbinger build I just did. Hello team players! Today we're building the Knight of Justice. Let's dive in. So first, of course, we gotta talk about stats. Obviously, we're building an offensive champion here, which means strength is going to be important not just for our armor, but also for our damage. Most important stat here. We're also going to need constitution because we're a champion. We need that HP. Not dex because obviously we're going to be wearing heavy armor. And charisma can be important for this build, but you can honestly put that last boost in just about anything. Strength and con are going to be our most important here. That's going to help us with our survivability and our damage. Both of those are. So we definitely need those. You'll have a choice of feat at level 2. So if you take one of the feats, then charisma is going to be absolutely important. But otherwise, you can boost pretty much what you want. For skills, what I recommend is charisma-based skills. Particularly if you do have at least decent charisma. Intimidation is great. Diplomacy, deception, all that. You're not going to need many skills in this build, because this build is about damage and protecting allies. But out of combat, charisma-based skills are useful. As the name of this build suggests, we are going with the Justice Cause for our champion here. This will allow us to reduce the damage on an ally and get a free melee attack as part of that, which is a big deal. Especially if my last build, the Battle Harbinger, has his auras up, as that'll just make us more accurate. Another reason why charisma might be important for this build is because at 9th level, when we hit with this extra attack, we do persistent spirit damage equal to our charisma modifier, which means charisma gives us even more damage. And of course, at 11th, when we hit with this strike, then everybody gets to use a reaction to melee strike the target at a -5. And we'll take even less of a penalty later on when we take a new champion feat. Moving on, let's talk feats. First, we're obviously going to want to take Nimble Reprisal. This allows us to make a retributive strike with a ranged weapon if we want to, but that's not hugely important here. What is important about this feat is if an enemy is within 5 feet of our reach but not in our reach when we use our retributive strike, we can take a step before we make the strike. Meaning, even if we take an ancestry like Dwarf, where we're kind of slow, we can still use our retributive strike effectively with this feat. And obviously, as a champion, we are going to be wearing heavy armor, because that just gives us the most AC. Period. This is just an easier way for us to use our retributive strike if enemies decide to go after, say, the Animist in this party, or our Vindicator if he's using ranged attacks. At level 2, you have kind of a choice here. You can either take Oath of the Avenger, or you can take Oath of the Slayer. It depends on what you're running into. If you're in a campaign where you know what you're facing every day, then Oath of the Slayer is the one you want. But if you want to be able to do good damage to all enemies, then Oath of the Avenger is the one you want. But this may be another reason why charisma is important. Because if you go Oath of the Avenger, then enemies do get a saving throw against your lay on hands. And that's going to go off your charisma. But this build may need some extra speed, so your next feat is going to be Faithful Steed. The animal companion you get from this feat is really going to help. Because, number one, it gives flanking partners. So, this is another way you can make enemies off guard. The other is that speed. Because sometimes you are going to need to move fast. The other thing is the support benefits that animal companions can give you can really help out. Obviously, you're going to have to pick something with a mount, feat, more than likely a horse. But that doesn't mean that the support benefits won't be useful. Plus, the animal companion is another target that the enemies have to worry about, which is always a good thing. Now, we haven't talked much about offensive options yet, other than our oath. But we will want to take Smite. This does only work on one enemy. However, it's just extra damage, which is fantastic. Keep in mind, our Battle Harbinger is boosting our accuracy. This will boost our damage, which is big. Plus, we're only going to be able to attack one enemy at a time anyway. So, we might as well get some extra damage on that enemy that we're attacking. And remember, if they hit anyone in the party, including us, this increases in duration. So, very effective here when it comes to melee combat. Next, we're going to be taking Loyal Warhorse and Imposing Destrier, both of which make our animal companions stronger and more of a threat. And remember, our animal companion counts as an ally for when we use Retributive Strike, which means if anyone attacks our animal companion while it's in our champion's aura, we get a free attack on them, which is freaking awesome. For level 12, I've gone with Blessed Counter-Strike. So, for one action, if an enemy has triggered our champion's reaction within the last turn, then we can make a strike against that creature. Not only does this strike deal an extra die of damage, for one action, mind you, but it also gives that enemy weakness equal to half our level to all strikes made by us and all of our allies until the start of our next turn. This can be huge stacked damage. And remember, our accuracy is going to be up because of our Battle Harbinger belts, which means we're going to hit a lot more than your standard champion. And at least one enemy is always going to trigger our champion's reaction at some point. We don't even have to hit with our Retributive Strike. They just have to trigger it. That's it. So this can definitely add up to some massive damage, even if we miss on the Retributive Strike. And we'll definitely make up for if we do miss. And this becomes even better with Exalted Greatness. Since we're Justice Cause, whenever we hit with our Retributive Strike, all of our allies that are within melee reach of the target get to make a strike as a reaction at a -2 rather than a -5. And keep in mind, every single build in this party can be in melee if they want to be. Which means, if they attack anybody in this party other than us, they are opening themselves up to a possible 4 attacks at a -2. And if we used our reactive strike last turn, they have weakness to all those attacks, including from our Animus and our Vindicator, if they're in melee combat. And remember, our Battle Harbinger belt will more likely be mitigating that -2 with his battle auras, which means those attacks might be at full attack bonus or even higher. When I first conceived of this party, I never thought it would have the insane offense that it does. If you can get your team to actually run this party, your GM will hate you. I know I certainly would not want to go up against this party as a GM. A lot of this is because of the Battle Harbinger and this build, but the Animus and the Vindicator do help out with ranged combat. But this becomes even better with Instrument of Zeal. When we hit with Blessed Counter-Strike or our Reactive Strike, we deal an extra dice of damage, and the target is slowed 1 on its next turn. We do have to critically hit to do this, but there's no saving throw. It's just, we deal even more damage, and they lose an action on their next turn. Slowed is like one of the best conditions you can put on an enemy. So, yeah, just getting rid of one of their actions is absolutely insane. And remember, thanks to our Battle Harbinger, we're going to be critting more often than your standard champion, which means we're going to be able to use this quite a bit more. At level 18, we're going to take Auspicious Mount to make our animal companion even stronger. Pretty simple here. And finally, for our capstone, we're going to be taking either Armament Paragon or Swift Paragon, depending on whether you took Blessed Swiftness or Blessed Armament at level 3. If you want more damage, go with Blessed Armament, and therefore you would take Armament Paragon here. If you don't want your allies to take reactions, then you would have taken Blessed Swiftness, and therefore you would take Swift Paragon. It really doesn't matter which of those two you take, but you need to take one of those. Armament Paragon allows you to add more runes to your weapon, and Swift Paragon makes you permanently quickened, but you can only use the extra action to step or stride, which can be very useful. But if you want to go full offense with this build, you're more than likely going to choose Armament Paragon here, as those have some great options for runes you can put on your weapon. And Armament Paragon also lets you switch runes on the fly, which is very handy. Now, this is normally where I talk about Ancestry and Free Archetype, but I don't really have any major choices for you guys. The reason is because you can pretty much go with any Ancestry here, as long as it doesn't give you a flaw in Strength or Constitution. Orc is good, Leshy is good, pretty much every Ancestry is good, except for something like Halfling that gets a minus to Strength. As for Free Archetype, Champion is one of those classes that you can pretty much take any Free Archetype you want with. It's very good with Free Archetype. But some ones I can recommend are Blessed One, Fighter, Barbarian. There's a lot you can take with this. You can even take something like a Charisma-based Spellcaster if you wanted. But you do want to focus on damage in this build, so any of the damage-based ones, including Mauler, can definitely help this build. I would have given you guys more of an update on this, but to be honest, I'm preparing for some major changes to the channel. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, and hopefully you guys will stick around for the new content. For example, the builds from now on are only going to go to level 10. I've been told that a lot of people don't get past level 10. If you guys want the builds to level 20, you can totally join my Patreon and get Google Sheets for these builds all the way to level 20. There's also going to be some other major changes to the builds. But if you guys want to see the entire party for my Divine Brigade, you can check it out right here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.